Minister, I'd like to thank my colleague Deputy David Cullinane for bringing forward this motion. We need action and we need it now. The red tape in recruitment, which was talked about earlier on, needs to be removed. We need more beds in our hospital system and we need to increase the hospital capacity to avoid patients being left waiting in ambulances and on trolleys. We need to expand our ambulance fleet to ensure that all communities, rural and urban, are properly served. And the figures of 2,500 staff for the ambulance service and the equivalent in Scotland is 5,000 is just not acceptable. There's many people here in this room who have had to call an ambulance at some stage in their lives, or indeed, unfortunately, may have had to travel in one as a patient. For the vast majority of people, calling an ambulance is a last resort for when they're really ill. It's done under extreme circumstances with great reluctance. So when it's called, people really do expect an appropriate timeline. However, that's increasingly not the case both in our city and rural communities. I've heard of people waiting an hour or more for an ambulance. However, my family had to come face to face with the reality of how under pressure they really are just this day last week. My mother is in her 80s. She was very sick last week with an infection and the ambulance was called at 1 o'clock. Despite numerous calls throughout the day, the ambulance didn't turn up until 5:30 p.m. We live in East Wall and my mother went to the Mater Hospital, which is just up the road. Do you believe that that's acceptable in a modern health service? Because certainly I don't believe so. I was shocked actually just even last night looking at the RTE programme and to hear that the first recorded patient that had to wait overnight in a trolley was in 1998. Today there are 409 people on trolleys as we stand here today. So when you think about it, 1998 to today, that was the first recorded one. I think that's absolutely shocking. It's not acceptable and there are solutions. It's time to get on with listening to the workers and the management and people here in this chamber and to implement the solutions that are out there. Not to do so with extreme urgency is to continue to put people's lives at risk.
Anyone else?